This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
A truly massive week on tap once again for Week 17, which is actually already underway with a couple of games on Wednesday for this week. But we have got a big one coming up on Sunday between the Packers and the Vikings. Pretty fun Sunday night game too between the Falcons and the Commanders. And of course, the Monday night game is the Lions and the Niners. So a lot of fun football on tap. Our job today is to break down all those key games, letting you know where you can find some betting value at FanDuel Sportsbook and laying out the best bets for this week by talking to Meghan Payton of FanDuel TV. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here as mentioned by Meghan Payton. You can find her on X at Meghan Payton7. Find her work over at FanDuel TV. Meghan, appreciate the time as always. How you doing today?
Hey, Jim. I'm doing good. Happy holidays. It's crazy week 17. The fact that we already have 2 games underway. I feel like we've gotten to watch football almost every single day this week. And we've got some fun, exciting ones this weekend, Saturday, tonight, Thursday. So it should be a fun week 17 and one push closer to the playoffs.
It'll be a fun one for sure. Unfortunately, the Christmas Day games kind of fell a little bit short. Not quite what we were expecting there. And I had 2 overs, and I was kind of hoping one half did their part, Meghan. Other half did not. So I need a bit more cooperation on both sides.
You needed a combine of the, you needed the 2 games to just, we needed different teams playing each other. That's correct. What you needed.
If we could jettison, I know our beloved Texans off into the abyss for a couple weeks, let them recoup. It's been a tough time. Let them recoup, get back on track, and then they can shift back into our lives in a couple of weeks. But we just need a short break from them because they are dead to me for a bit for right now. For today, we're going to talk to Meghan about the futures market because this is one of the final spots we have to actually buy futures before we get massive inflection points this weekend. As far as seeding goes primarily, but also some other stuff on the line as well. Then we'll dive into 3 key games: Packers, Vikings, Falcons, Commanders, and Lions versus Niners. And we'll talk to Meghan about our best bets across the entirety of Week 17. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Back with you once again tomorrow morning. We're going to talk to Aiden Cotter of FanDuel Research, pick his brain on the top player props for Week 17. That'll be up on the YouTube page, 10 a.m. Eastern, but again on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and make sure you are subscribed there. And of course, the YouTube page, DFS show tomorrow, noon Eastern. Myself and Brandon Gadula breaking down the top DFS plays for Week 17. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways to hook you up with a W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. This way, you'll be all set for the biggest games of the year. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chattanooga, Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Meghan, this week, we're going to get a lot of data on seeding, specifically in the NFC, because AFC #1 seed is already locked up. Still some key stuff, though, in the AFC, because the Bills still got to win if they want to host that second-round playoff matchup, because the Ravens could still leapfrog them because they do hold the tiebreaker there. So still some stuff on the line for the Bills, a lot of stuff on the line for the Lions on Monday as well, of course, Vikings, Packers, etc. So I want to talk to you about the conference and Super Bowl markets. With the seeding about to be finalized, Meghan, any futures you want to snag there before we get fully into Week 17?
Yeah, Jim, I think the value is in the NFC because the NFC is the wide open conference, especially at the top. So the Lions and the Eagles both fighting, and the Vikings all fighting for that one seed. I'm looking at just Super Bowl markets outright. And now I do have a little bit of personal, bias and intrigue in the Packers because that was my preseason Super Bowl bet. But I really do like the fact that you can get them still at plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl. And I feel like this is the team that has gone completely under the radar, even despite the fact that they've had 30 or more points. And I believe the last 5 games, the Packers offense continues to look better despite all the injuries that they've dealt with. And it really does feel like they are pretty complete. Maybe defensively, they might not stack up like every other team, but just given the fact that the price is at plus 1,200 and the fact that it feels like they've kind of taken a little bit of a rise up, I like the buy-in on them. And I was really surprised that the Eagles were still at plus 700. That's a fantastic price for probably the most complete team right now in the NFC. The Lions obviously being the expected team to make it in the NFC, but I do really think, unfortunately, the injuries will eventually catch up to them. So the Eagles and Packers in the NFC are where I find value if you're looking at the Super Bowl market.
Yeah, the Eagles might not have Hurts this weekend, but it probably doesn't matter all that much.
Yeah.
Like they would need some things to go crazy awry in order to not win the NFC East. So they're probably going to wind up being the 2 seed almost regardless. And I think that carries a lot of weight because, like you said, they'd be at home until they were to face the Lions hypothetically in the NFC Championship game. And like, there's a shot the Lions don't get there with all the defensive injuries as well. So there are a lot of scenarios that play out pretty well for the Eagles. That defense has been absolutely lights out. And although we may not see Hurts this weekend, maybe not in week 18 either, the long-term prognosis for him should still be good. So yeah. I think that's a pretty intriguing number 7-1, just given how well that defense is playing.
And that's the biggest point here is when you obviously concussion, but it doesn't seem like it's one of those injuries that's going to be, leading into the playoffs. And what's crazy is like they still look really good. Even, I mean, I know that was a wild game. They don't end up winning, but like Saquon Barkley went off and they have so many key pieces on offense and obviously defensively that I think will take them through the postseason, especially when Hurts gets back out there and healthy.
Yeah, and we do appreciate the Eagles for their service, getting my Commanders money line for last week. So shout out to them for that, and we can thank them again by betting them potentially to win it all 7-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Okay, you talked about the Packers, so let's dig into their game now on Sunday as they take on the Vikings. Right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, this game has gone kind of back and forth. The Vikings were favored, and then it flipped around, and now the Packers money line is out to minus 116. So it sounds like, Megan, odds makers agree with you, where the Packers are pretty intriguing. If you're willing to bet the Packers win it all, are you willing to bet them in this game to defeat the Vikings on Sunday?
I am. I'm willing to bet them. I like them. I do like the over more in this spot. So I lean Packers, but obviously 2 teams that are just playing really good football, 2 offenses especially that are playing great. We mentioned the fact that the Packers have had at least 30 points in the last 4 games. Momentum is everything in this league, and they've got it right now. And so do the Vikings. So when you look at the over in a divisional rival that, yes, I know typically you think it's going to be a gritty kind of style game. It's really not how it hasn't been like that for these 2 teams. It was a high scoring game the first time they played. The Vikings came up on top, and traditionally these 2 teams split most commonly. That's why I also lean Packers here. I think that they get the revenge against Minnesota, even though it is on the road. But the over is definitely the way that I'm playing it for 2 hot offenses.
The over right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, over 48.5 is minus 110 for that one. You mentioned the Packers scoring 30-plus points in 4 consecutive games. They've done that basically without trying for the second half in the past 2 of those. And I run numbers that divide things out based on early down and late down efficiency. They are the second most efficient passing offense on early downs this year, behind only the Baltimore Ravens. Like, they have been insane. Yeah. That's not cherry picking, Toyota-thon Jordan Love. It's just looking at their overall numbers for the entire year. They've been fantastic. So I have them as the better team than the Vikings in a neutral field. So I understand why the market is where it's at. So I think that I'm on board with you where we should see some points in this game. It's a pretty intriguing one. if you bet the over, you get exposure. You're not cringing when Justin Jefferson runs wide open down the sidelines. Jordan Addison breaks free. So I think that if you're just trying to have fun, Megan, that seems like the preferred way to go.
Absolutely. And then there's so many player props in this one as well. I think it's worth looking at Christian Watson over his receiving yards. He's averaged over 85 in the last 4 games as well. Josh Jacobs, anytime touchdown. Now, one of the ways that I actually bet on the Packers last week and it ended up working out, which I wouldn't be opposed to here, is play the first halves. And then first half for Josh Jacobs and first half for Packers to cover. You get a little bit better value. Obviously, on the touchdown, you get better value than just taking Josh Jacobs anytime. And I mean, I really do think it's going to be the same way we've seen it the last few. The Packers are going to rely on him when they get within that 15-yard line. I mean, even before then, he can take off and run. He is getting, I mean, he's got 10 touchdowns, I believe, in the last 5 or 6 games. So he's trying to get to that record. I don't know if he's going to quite make it, but right. I think the first half is another way to play Packers and Vikings.
Yeah, the Packers -1.5 right now, or plus 105 in the first half. You want to play that spread with them there and expect the Packers to get off to a hot start, which does also make sense. Weirdly, less travel for the Packers this week, despite the fact they are on the road. They were at home last week. The Vikings were in Seattle. It is a short week for Green Bay because they played on Monday night, but still weird travel advantage for the Packers despite that in this one. Okay, let's move on to our second game of the week. That is the Sunday Night Football game between the Commanders and the Falcons. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Commanders favored by 4.5, and the total in this game is 47.5. And Michael Penix, Megan, did get a win in his NFL debut, but now he is not indoors. He is not an 8.5-point favorite. His defense probably not going to get him a couple of touchdowns. He is instead outdoors on the road, 4.5-point dog. Can Penix and the Falcons cover against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders?
No, they cannot. It was fun. It was fun to watch Penix. It was fun to finally see the Falcons actually put up some points. And it really shows you Raheem Morris made the right decision by benching Kirk Cousins and putting Penix in. They really didn't have another option. But now it gets a lot tougher. First game on the road against a Commanders pass defense that's improved dramatically with Marshall Lattimore out there now, and a Commanders team that has a bit more to play for. I know the Falcons technically are alive, but a lot would have to happen, I still think, for the Falcons to upset Washington. So Jaden Daniels showed just how he deserves that Rookie of the Year award potentially against the Eagles. I know you had the Commanders money line, which great call, great sweat. I do like Washington to cover, and I would be looking, I hate to do this, and I always feel bad anytime I bet on it, but a Michael Penix interception is a bet that I would probably throw in as well. Outdoors, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult in that second start.
Yeah, I am agreeing with you here. I've been on the Commanders quite a bit this year, and I'm on them once again this week. I have them at -6.4 for this game. Yeah. And I agree with that because I can look at Penix and what he did last week. He played very well. Look at his efficiency numbers. He was very good, and it was genuinely awesome. But again, he had a big lead the entire game, thanks to the defense. He was at home. He was facing a Dexter Lawrence-less Giants defense, and it's a different animal here. I know Marshall Lattimore is banged up again for the Commanders, so he might not be out there, but their full season numbers account for that because he's only played effectively 1.5 games so far. So when I look at the defensive numbers for the Commanders, they're not great, but they are better than the Giants without Dexter Lawrence. So it's just such a tough setup for Penix that I just feel like the Commanders are the right side here. It's Daniels against a pass defense that's really struggled to slow down receivers. Terry McLaurin, kind of good at football. So to me, I think the Commanders are the proper side here. And I did lay the 4.5 with them as well.
Yeah, I was surprised that this wasn't more closer to a touchdown, which makes sense that your model has it towards that 6.5 mark. And so I think we are getting it at a very fair, if not really good price at -4.5. So I'm with you. Washington covers, and Penix probably takes a little bit of a step back in his second start.
Yes, check out the Penix pick prop once that is up at FanDuel Sportsbook as well. -4.5 is -102 to lay that with the Commanders. The Monday night game may not be as appealing as it may have been when the schedule makers put things out, but it's still pretty fun. That is the Lions and the Niners right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Lions there by 3.5, and the total in this game is 50.5. No Trent Williams here for the Niners. They've got a lot of guys who are banged up. No Dre Greenlaw for the final 2 games, but the Lions have said they're going to play their guys no matter what in this one, because I know that everything kind of for them kind of comes down to what happens in week 18, but it's Dan Campbell, man. He's going to do whatever he's got to do to get his guys riled up and fired up for another game here on Monday night. So Megan, the Niners eliminated, but they still got a lot of talent on their team. How are you viewing this one as the Lions take on the Niners on Monday night?
I think it'll actually be a much better game than people think, even though the Niners have been extremely disappointing and have dealt with a ton of injuries. I think they'll keep it close. I think the spread is pretty accurate. I did take the Lions to win and cover here. You said it perfectly. Dan Campbell is going to have the team or not. With that kind of win mentality last couple of weeks, it will come down to week 18, but a loss against the Niners isn't going to help that spot by any means. So I also did like, if you look at Detroit over their team total, I think that's a way to play it too. If you're afraid that this game could get a little bit closer, you can take the Detroit Lions team total. I believe it's sitting at, is it still around 20 or 27 and a half? Is that what it says?
Yep, 27 and a half over
yeah,
is
so I like the
104.
over there on that one.
Yeah, and I think that what that does, Megan, is it kind of safeguards you, because the concerns around the Lions is that they have all these defensive injuries and maybe they struggle as a result, though, which makes sense. It's Debo looked better last week. It's George Kittle. You've got Juwan Jennings, Brock Purdy, maybe Isaac Arendo's back out there as well. So it's a tough setup for the defense, but the offense is almost fully healthy. I know that there's no David Montgomery, but Jahmyr Gibbs, more than capable, is a full-time back there for them. So you kind of safeguard yourself here. And when you combine everything for me, that's where I wind up getting to basically this number. And if I were to bet this game, I don't have a lot of value anyway. I think that this would be the preferred way to go because I do have the Lions here by 4.1, total for me 51.4. So that does to me say, if I were to bet it, I would lean towards the over on the Lions team total, just because, again, I don't want to deal with the injuries. That's my biggest concern with the Lions. I don't have to worry about laying 3.5 on the road for the Lions here either. And what is not as impactful of a game for them, I think that the team total will be the preferred route to do so, given all those factors that are in play here.
Yeah, it's just betting on this offense, really. And the fact that, we don't know if in a week or two or this weekend, their defensive injuries are really going to catch up to them.
Right.
And we've seen enough on offense, even without David Montgomery. They've got a great run game. Jahmyr Gibbs can do it all. And then obviously the receiver list is never ending. So I'm with you. I take the over on Detroit's team total, 27.5. And it really could be a much closer game than you think.
Yeah. And also, just kudos to Aaron Glenn, because the job he has done defensively, with this group of guys, with all the injuries they've had, they've still been fine. It hasn't collapsed yet. It should eventually, but it hasn't yet. And the fact that it's taken this long, he deserves head coaching looks with the job he has done there. It's been incredible to watch.
And Aaron Glenn kind of has he doesn't get obviously the same recognition because he's a DC, but he motivates that defense. He's got those same pump up speeches, that Dan Campbell mentality.
Former player as well. Everyone on their staff is a former player, but he is too. And I think that does help players connect to that kind of guy.
He's been great. And so love to watch that whole coaching staff succeed. And there's no way Dan Campbell is taking his foot off the gas by any means this week.
Yeah. I've always had a soft spot for Aaron Glenn because I played as the Jets in Madden back when I was a kid, and he was always a beast at corner. So I will root for Aaron Glenn always. And I don't have to worry about him, I guess, on Monday with this team total, but we're still riding with the Lions over 27.5 at plus 104. Okay, Megan, a lot of other games still to come across week 17. Where else is seeing value for this week at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Let's talk about tonight's game. We've got Seahawks, Bears, and if we're talking brutal losses, Seattle last weekend, I was texting one of my Seahawks friends, just it was a tough one to watch, especially given what's at stake and how open the NFC West has been. Obviously, a little less open now with the Cardinals officially being eliminated, but Seattle not only has to win, but they would need a lot more to go in their direction. Now they no longer control their own destiny, but Seattle can definitely win and cover against the Bears tonight. They're going to have to. And I think that Geno Smith does just enough to get the job done here tonight and to get him to cover. The Bears look terrible. And even if you see slight promise from Caleb Williams, they're sitting with 4 wins. There's nothing to play for here. It feels like this organization still needs a bit of a reboot, whereas Seattle's very close. And they're, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, they were technically in that 4th seed, and then they, dropped out 8, and now a little bit further back. I think they come out strong here tonight. I'm going to take -4.5. I'm going to take over Geno's passing yards because I think in order for them to win and cover, it's going to have to be win through the air.
They can't run the football, so I agree with that for sure. Geno's passing yardage prop 248.5 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, laying in the -4.5 with the Seahawks. That is currently at, I believe, -106 on that one too. Seahawks still 5-1 to win the NFC West. They would need a lot of weird stuff to happen. They can still make the playoffs overall, so they're not dead yet. The Bears very much are. So Megan is on the Seahawks -4.5, -106, and the Geno Smith passing prop over 248.5 is -110. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. As mentioned, back with you once again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on the YouTube page, breaking down top player props for this week with Aiden Cotter of FanDuel Research, getting his thoughts on top player props and touchdown bets there. And back with you on the YouTube side of things at noon, talking some DFS with Brandon Gadula as well. Megan, appreciate the time as always. Good luck to you for Thursday night. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you once again next week here to break down the Week 18 games as well.
Thank you, Jim. Just one more week closer to the playoffs. Good luck this week and have fun.
It is weird to be here already, but I'm excited for some playoff football for sure. You can find Megan on X at Meghan Payton 7. I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find a FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets on Thursday night. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down some player props and DFS. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.